Hello, ladies, gentlemen, and the 57 genders in between. I'm Paul Bazile, and while we wait for some people to jump on here, I'm going to load my pipe. Shouldn't be too long, never is. Hope everyone's doing all right. It's cold as fuck. About to smoke. Now, today, a couple things I was talking to people about on Twitter and Instagram that I had a hot take on it, and I wasn't expecting it to cause as much trouble as it caused. But as usual, I can't keep my mouth shut, and I got a lot of pushback. Now, I am a grizzled old journalism veteran. I've been doing journalism for years. And if there's one skill that I learned from journalism, it is sniffing out bullshit. Doesn't mean I'm always right, but I haven't been wrong so fucking far. Normally, when somebody's full of shit, I could tell you so-and-so looks like they're lying, and let me tell you why. It'll light up. Now, when it comes to sniffing out bullshit, a very controversial topic these days has been the Me Too thing. And this is very late in the Me Too. Me Too hasn't been around now. It hasn't been like the thing in the paper every day for quite some time. But much to my surprise and chagrin, I was shocked when I saw Marilyn Manson, of all people, was being accused of abuse and torment and sexual abuse and being an all-around bad guy. And it started with Evan Rachel Wood, who I remember him dating her back in the day because I always thought it was really weird how like normal she seemed. And then Dita Von Teese, who was his ex-wife, said, oh yeah, he's an asshole. Rose McGowan, the founder of Me Too, never mentioned Marilyn Manson. She dated him in a very high-profile relationship back in the day. Never brought Marilyn Manson up once during talking about all the people that abused her. And apparently everybody in Hollywood abused Rose McGowan, according to her. Never brought up Manson. She defended him and then suddenly took it back when there was too much heat. Former guitar player his came out and said, oh yeah, he's a fucking asshole. And today, the girl who played Roz on Game of Thrones apparently dated him too and came out and said, oh, yep, total abusive asshole, worst time period of my life. I hate Marilyn Manson. Now, what can I tell you about this? From being a journalist, having a bullshit detector that I think comes with being Sicilian, and living in New Jersey, where everybody's fucking bullshitting you, and you learn real quick, oh, this guy's full of shit. When you listen to a story like this, what can you learn and what can I tell you? Well, first thing I can tell you, in full disclosure, I've been a Marilyn Manson fan for quite some time. I've seen him in concert at least 2 or 3 times. I saw him with Rob Zombie on the Twins of Evil tour. I think he's a great performer. When I was young in the mid-90s, he was one of the guys on MTV who shocked me and blew my mind. And he was a very shocking, controversial guy. It was sort of his thing, if you remember Marilyn Manson and what it was like for Marilyn Manson back in the day before he was just interesting. Before he was like, oh, that guy's weird and interesting. He was shocking. He was, oh my God, how do we keep him away from the children type shocking, right? Which is ironic. So, Evan Rachel Wood, who dated Manson, I think over 20 years ago, suddenly, these wounds, the emotion pouring out of this woman, fresh in her fucking mind. It was the worst thing I ever experienced. Oh my God. And then it starts getting into he was grooming her from when she was underage, and he's basically a pedophile groomer type guy, right? And the evidence that she presents is stories. Well, here's the thing. A story isn't evidence. A story is an accusation. And when you have an accusation as serious as among the most serious crimes we have, which is rape and pedophilia. I mean, other than those two, murder is pretty much it, right? So rape, pedophilia, murder. But if you're going to say this guy is a rapist and he's a pedophile, by the way, you better have some serious shit to back it up. And you can't just 20 years later, it's like, where the fuck have you been? You've been a star this entire time. I didn't think anyone would believe me. Yeah, because the police are always really behind Marilyn Manson. You know, the fucking shock jockers control police for some reason. So no one would believe little cute blonde Evan Rachel Wood over Marilyn Manson. Are you fucking kidding? Evan Rachel Wood has been a high profile actress for quite some time. She could have come out with this at any old time. She could have come out with it 2 years after the relationship, 5 years after the relationship. But here is the first way to tell that somebody who's accusing somebody of something very serious, and I don't even want to say Evan Rachel Wood is totally wrong. I'm just saying from what I've heard so far, I smell bullshit. And my first signal that this is fucking bullshit is instead of calling the cops, you called a journalist. Instead of running to the phone and calling 911, you ran to your Twitter years after the fact. Matter of fact, at this point, it's been like a good year at least since the Me Too thing has been in full swing. So it almost strikes me, if I didn't know any better, I would say that Evan Rachel Wood maybe needed something to talk about, maybe needed attention. And she probably had a falling out with Manson. Probably doesn't like Marilyn Manson anymore. And, you know, when you bring him up to her, he probably goes, fuck that guy. He was a total asshole to me when I was dating him. And now people are going, oh, okay, tell us about your past. Whoa, that's interesting. You dated Marilyn Manson. And now she wants to reframe their entire relationship. Now, keep in mind, this is all her side of the story. We haven't heard his side of the story yet. I think maybe his people put a statement out saying, like, he categorically denies this, blah, blah, blah. But we haven't heard him going, okay, let me tell you how it fucking was. And that is the New Jerseyan in me. That is the Northeasterner in me. I want the guy, when somebody accuses somebody of something or somebody fucking is denying something, I want to hear the people hash it out in a way where they're like, let me tell you exactly what happened. This bitch fucking came to my house one day, right? Now, I'm fucking going out of my mind. I have a tour. Then I go, okay, this is realistic. This is the real him. The bullshit of, there I was, trapped in an abusive relationship. It's like, hey, you know, Evan Rachel Wood, you know the one thing I know about you? You know the one thing that you are? You're an actress. You're an actress. And when actresses want to make their point about their life, they perform fucking 6 scenes of Hamlet for you, which is what it seemed to me that Evan Rachel Wood did in these revelations. It was very dramatized. It was very, you know, oh, he was horrible. What a monster. The abuse in my life. I can't believe it. I can't express how horrible he was. And all I keep thinking is, where the fuck were you when everybody was doing this to everybody? One. So that's chance number one. Actually, that's like chance number 50. Chance number one is you break up with the guy, you get away from him. You could have went to the press that day, and my God, the press loved writing horrible shit about shock rocker Marilyn Manson did this. He kicked a guy at a fucking concert. He put his dick on somebody's head. He's wearing crazy clothes. He's doing all this bullshit. He said something about Jesus. They love talking crap about Manson. Where were you? You could have went right then and there. Hey, you know what? Maybe you didn't want to air your dirty laundry. Totally get it. Totally get it. But do you think it's fair to, after being like, I don't want to air my dirty laundry, I just got to have this fucking relationship? Great, get it. You have every right in the world to do that. Is it really fair to then turn around 20 years later and say, well, now that we're decades removed from each other, now that Manson is just a memory I have, and I'm just a memory he has, I'm going to bring it back up, and I'm going to fucking tell everybody all of our personal fucking life. Now, here's the thing, man. I'm a punk rocker. I've been in the metal scene, the hardcore scene, the goth scene. I made a movie about it called Living the American Nightmare, about all these shock rockers and goth rockers and death rockers. So I am in this fucking world. lot of these guys like weird sexual stuff. Now, there's a singer for a very big band, and I will not reveal his name unless we get 300 people watching the feed. But if we can get that, I'll say his fucking name. Who gives a shit? Call your friends. But there's a guy who I talked to several girls. Matter of fact, we used to sort of share the same women. And more than one girl separately who didn't know each other told me that this major rock star, that his thing was he used to try to fuck these girls while they were asleep. I said, what do you mean? He goes, he would start doing things to me when I was asleep. And I would wake up and be like, oh, okay, this is what we're doing. Let's go for it. And then he would stop. And then when we would have sex, he would tell me sometimes things like, stay perfectly still, which I think is the creepiest thing I ever fucking heard. And I even said, like, well, were you moving around? Were you like going while he's trying to fuck you? And he was like, stay still. And she goes, no, like we're just getting into it. I'm hugging him, touching him. He didn't want me to do that. He wanted my arms on my side. He wanted me to lay perfectly still while he did stuff to me. And this is a guy who sang for a major rock band who I was very close with. That's the weirdest shit I ever heard, because in my head, I'm like, so that's like a necrophiliac fucking thing? Like that's creepy. With all that being said, I'm respecting this person's privacy, because what adults do in their bedroom, in their private life, is their business. And a lot of these crazy rocker guys who cut themselves on stage and wear makeup and black clothes, yeah, that's an extension. That's the character they wanted to make for themselves, because behind the scenes, they like a bunch of bondage shit. They like to, fucking get tortured. They like to torture the other person, and torture in like a play sexual way. They like to chain them up, whip them, hit them, and all this other shit. Now, the girl who played Roz in Game of Thrones came out today saying, oh, I went to go see Manson after he broke up with Dita Von Teese. Okay, great. He goes, we talked before then, and then after his marriage ended, he called me. And in my head, first thing I'm thinking is, sounds like a stand-up guy. He didn't try and fuck you behind his wife's back. And she goes, I flew out from England to Hollywood, and we did some stuff, and they were having rough sex. And when she went back, her roommate commented like she had some marks and bruises and stuff on her from spending a weekend with Marilyn Manson, having a bunch of crazy sex. Okay. So what did she do? Did she go, my God, the nightmare of my life, I will never go back there? That was horrific. No, she continued talking to him like everything was normal. Then at some point she mentioned that she needed a visa to work in the United States and live there. He said, oh, come do some videos for me and stuff, and I can help get you that visa through whatever, my label and stuff like that. So then what she did was returned to him and continued sleeping with him. Once that you come to that part of the story and these crazy fucking interviews with the Me Too people and stuff like that, everything else you said before that is bullshit, of how you had the worst time in the world. It was the worst day of your life. And for you to be like, well, I went because I wanted a visa. It's like, I hate to say this, that makes you a whore. Because if some guy was putting fucking lit cigarettes out on you and doing horrible things to you and humiliating you, and you were like, I don't know how I feel about this, and he goes, hey, by the way, I could give you $1,000 if you come back and do it again. And you go, oh, really? Okay, cool. And apparently stayed with him and was his girlfriend for quite some time. Does that sound like a victim to you? And she said, oh, I felt like I couldn't be on my phone. He would, he would yell at people in the house. Everything had to be his way. He put blackout curtains on his fucking windows. And she kept saying, I felt like I was trapped. I felt like I was trapped. And other people would say like, oh, if he stays up all night, you just stay up with him. Just do whatever he's doing. That's what we do. Yeah, it's called being rich. It's called being a rock star. This is what I have worked for many rich people, and some of them have been very famous. I'll give you a name, Milo Yiannopoulos. I worked for him. He's weird. And I noticed something about him, that he's no more weird than most people with money. That Milo is just as rich people have this thing. They don't like the least amount of discomfort. And they don't give a shit if you're standing there waiting around for them for 2 hours But the second they're ready to go and the second they're ready to run off and do whatever the fuck we're going to do, you have to be ready with them. That is what rich people do. That is how they behave. That is how people who get adulation and celebrity all day, they just think that that's the way the world is. It's not good or bad. If you're not the rich guy, if you're me, it definitely gets annoying, gets on your nerves. Where you're like, dude, just be a fucking dude for once. Like, stop with this, like, yeah, so when I decide, act. It gets fucking aggravating. With that being said, it's not unique. Manson is doing what Manson does. Particularly, he's a guy, he's very dramatic, he's very eccentric, he takes a lot of fucking drugs. What kind of sexual partnership did you expect to have with him? When you see Marilyn Manson, anybody out there who's like, I can't believe Manson is doing BDSM, it's like, what did you think he was like in his personal life? Did you think he went home, put on a pair of fucking Let's Go Jets fucking sweatpants and put the game on and just ate popcorn in his fucking chair and was like, this Satan shit is bull. No, if anything, and literally in the fucking article with the Roz from Game of Thrones chick who accused him of a bunch of this shit recently, she said something along the lines of how he's hiding in plain sight because he does the whole look how crazy and shocking I am. And when I hear that, when I hear people go, he's hiding in plain sight, I'm going, in other words, he's not being phony. In other words, he's just doing what Marilyn Manson does. And you're surprised because at the end of the relationship, now you did a bunch of shit, and Evan Rachel Wood said the same thing, that sort of was sexually humiliating to you, with which many girls take part in voluntarily. And many girls find exciting to be humiliated sexually. And when you get into a sexual relationship with Marilyn Manson, I would think that you're in for a weird night. I think you're in for a night where you're going to be tied up in leather and he's going to have a fucking sword and being going, I command you to piss on the floor in front of me. And he's inserting stuff into you. And that's what you're in for with Marilyn Manson. I'm not surprised by it. Why are you? Why are these girls who dated him shocked and amazed that this is the kind of thing that Marilyn Manson is into? And I would even wager to think that they stuck around. They didn't run screaming out of the house and never see him again. These are women who apparently were in long-term relationships with the guy. So what? It took you years. I felt trapped. I couldn't go anywhere. He would yell. He would yell. This is that Hollywood fucking fragility again. I hate to fucking let anybody know, but Jesus Christ, I don't want to shake your confidence. I've been yelled at before. People yell at me all the fucking time. Sometimes for good reason, sometimes for no fucking reason. But I don't understand. It's like, he may have yelled and been upset with me if I didn't do all the horrible things 20 years ago. And I'm going, yeah. So tell him to go fuck himself. And this is also a woman thing too. Women have a problem. Like, I'll hear like girlfriends I've had would be like, oh, we all hate that one girl who comes out with us. I'm like, why? Oh, she just talks about herself and monopolizes the conversation. I'm like, why doesn't one of you just turn to her and go, hey, shut the fuck up. You're always talking about yourself. Can you just, for 2 seconds, please? All you have to do is do that. And she goes, oh, we can't. We're women. Women can't act like that. And I was like, that's how I act with my friends. If a guy's talking too much, we go, oh, man, shut up. You fucking talk too much, okay? And we all move on and we're all still friends. And when it comes to a relationship where you're like, I think I was abused last night, why wouldn't you look Marilyn Manson in his weird makeup smeared face and go, hey, fuckface, I'm not into whatever you're into, and whatever we did, fine, but I got to get the fuck out of here. But apparently none of them did this. Now, down to Dita Von Teese, and then Rose McGowan, Rose McGowan, for those of you who don't know, was a victim of the fappening. And I'm a good journalist, so I did my research, and I watched Rose McGowan have sex. And boy, this girl likes leather type shit and studded stuff, and she's down with videotaping herself and doing weird shit and wearing weird outfits, and she's a weird chick in the bedroom. Or I wouldn't even say weird. Nothing I wouldn't do with a fucking girl, but she's unusual in her private life, let's say. So isn't it a wonder how this woman accused everybody in Hollywood of abusing her, raping her, taking advantage of her, propositioning her, dated Manson for several years, had nary a complaint, had nothing to say about her relationship with Brian Hugh Marilyn Manson Warner. Isn't that fucking interesting? And then when the accusations came out, she went, I don't know what you're talking about. He never abused me. That's weird. What? Abuse? Marilyn Manson? Nah. And then later, when more people were like, he's a fucking asshole. Well, who are these people? One of them's Dita Von Teese. That's his ex-wife. One of them is Evan Rachel Woods, who said, and now we're going to get to the good stuff, because the good stuff is he apparently was grooming Evan Rachel Wood. Now, by grooming, what she seems to mean when Evan Rachel Wood says Marilyn Manson was grooming me is that they spoke a few times before she was 18. And they may have spoken as early as when she was 14. And when I say spoke, I mean just that. It wasn't courtship from what I could understand. It was, we talked in a platonic way. Well, it sounds weird. If you have a 14-year-old daughter and some guy in his 30s is like calling your daughter going like, hey, is Cindy there? You'd be like, what are you doing? Fuck off, dude. But this is Hollywood. She's an actress. He's a rock star. It's different. It's different. I mean, I'm a big fan of watching Corey Feldman, and one day we will do a live stream on Corey Feldman, I promise you, because it is a fucking gold mine. But I'm a big fan of watching what Corey Feldman's become. He thinks everybody fucking abused him too, but he also brags about how when he was fucking 12, he hung out with Michael Jackson. Oh, Michael didn't abuse him, by the way. Okay, of all people, but fine. And talks about how he hung out with this guy and met that guy, and adults were around all the time. This is a Hollywood thing. And if you're outside of Hollywood, it's very easy for you to go, can you believe he was talking to a 14-year-old girl at a party? And it's like, well, yeah, why was a 14-year-old girl at a party? Can you believe he was texting the 14-year-old girl? Yeah, you know, was he texting his dick? Was he saying, I want to fuck you? No, he didn't say any of that. And even by Evan Rachel Wood's admission, she goes, after my 18th birthday, out of nowhere, he called me and said, hey, we should go and hang out. And she was like, oh, and now she's like, I feel so dirty. He was grooming me. And it's like, so by your own admission, he waited till you were 18. That doesn't sound like a pedophile. Doesn't sound like a pedophile. I think if Manson was a pedophile, we would have heard about it by now, for one. There's plenty of people out there, Christian groups, all sorts of people who fucking hate this guy. You don't think that if people were going, hey, he's walking around with like a 14-year-old girl, because he wasn't, because he never did, because he waited until Evan Rachel Woods was of legal age. And yeah, there's a whole different argument there. You could say, well, he's still 30, he's 18. Listen, until I hit 30, I never felt creepy. I always dated 20-year-olds, 21-year-olds, 22-year-olds. And then by the time I hit like 30, 32, people were going like, dude, you're a fucking creep. And I'm like, why? And they're like, your girlfriend's like 20. And I'm like, so? Yeah. And they're like, that's creepy. And I went, wait, I'm like 12 years older than her. Oh my God, that is, I guess, a little creepy. And I never thought about it like that. When you're a rock star, and here's the thing, when you're a rock star and you're a millionaire and you're the son of the fucking Antichrist and you're up on stage doing your thing, you know why you fuck 18-year-old girls? Does anyone have the answer to why a big rock star might fuck an 18-year-old girl? Because they can. Because they can. It's that fucking simple. And it's not right. It's not, oh, she should. Because I guarantee, I mean, shit, I know 25-year-old girls who are very easy to manipulate and very, you know, open to suggestion and stuff like that, let alone a girl who's 18, a girl who's 19, a girl who's 20. So it's very possible that the things that Evan Rachel Wood thought, okay, well, this is just the crazy bondage shit that we're into, and I'm going to do crazy stuff with this guy. Very possible that she wasn't ready for that psychologically. He pushed her a little too hard because he was used to just doing what he wanted with whoever he wanted because he was a big rock star. Very possible. And it's very possible that now, reflecting back as a 20 years later, as a 38-year-old, whatever she might be, SJW, Evan Rachel Woods is now looking back on all that and going, man, that was a fucked up time in my life. I was letting Marilyn Manson hook fucking electrodes up to my nipples. I was letting Marilyn Manson do this. I was letting Marilyn Manson touch me. But you were an adult and you didn't leave. And then you didn't say anything about it for years and years until your feminist friends started getting in your head going, that's fucked up and you should never do that. And she went, oh my God, yeah, I should never fucking do that. I'm an asshole. Then, after all that, after all the bullshit, now people are calling him a rapist. They're calling for him he should be, I don't know what they're going to do. Drop him from the label. He's not allowed to tour anymore. He's an asshole. Why? Did he go to court? Did any of these women go, hey, let's take this guy to court? Not a one. Not a one. Matter of fact, not a one came out recently. And when I think about it, and this is the point I was bringing up with people today who were arguing with me online about this. I said, tell me you don't have an ex who would say horrible, out of context things about you. Tell me that. Just think real hard, anyone watching this. Think about in your life. Who formally in your life have you been with, in a relationship with, been close with? And even like when they go, his former guitar player, it's like, do you motherfuckers know musicians? They all hate each other. When they break up, when they get fired from a band, they leave because of one reason or another, they all just talk shit and can't wait to fuck that person over. I've seen it first fucking hand. So that's my bone to pick. That everyone is an ex. He's a dramatic guy, probably likes crazy chicks because he's into crazy stuff. He's into drink from my goat's head while I wave my sword over my fucking head and you touch my dick or whatever the fuck he's into. But for them to go, we got to label him a sex trafficking pedophile groomer now. Wow. You're going to need some evidence for that for me. And when I say evidence, I don't mean like a story from someone 20 years later and no one else. And this person from 20 years later may or may not have a grudge, just like your exes may or may not have a grudge. I'm not even joking about this. People think I'm exaggerating when I say that I have multiple stalkers. There's a guy I threw out of a restaurant I was working in, I think 10 or 11 years ago, maybe even a little more. He still follows all my accounts. I never had a relationship as far as a friendship with him, never knew about him. He found me on Facebook through the restaurant's website or something like that. And literally he has made fake Twitter account or like Twitter accounts about me saying that I'm going to shoot up schools, mosques, temples. He's watching this right now at some point. He will fucking watch this. Hi, Byron. How you doing, you fucking weirdo? He says the craziest shit. He put my address out there. He told everyone, like, if you see me, I'm a dangerous person. He knows where I live, and I live in the fucking hood. But he's labeled me as a racist hate crime perpetuator because naturally the only reason why we kicked him out of the restaurant was because he was black, which was... It's psychotic. It's so stupid because it's like we have black people working with us. We have other black people eating in the restaurant. We kicked him out of the restaurant because he was stealing from the restaurant. But I'm talking about over a decade later, the guy is still trying to push this grudge. So if something high profile came out about me down the road, some ex-girlfriend accused me of some bullshit, you don't think that this guy would be in the newspaper the next day saying, and I was there and he hate crimed all over me? Of course he would. Of course, because that's how hysterical, crazy people who need to be medicated fucking act. Everything's always about them. Everything's about getting attention on them. Nothing is about like the grand scheme of things or, was that moment in my life really worth it or should I move on? Turns out Evan Rachel Wood hasn't moved on. Turns out Dita Von Teese, who went through divorce with Marilyn Manson. How do you think divorce is, by the way? Do you think his ex-wife is going to have amazing things to say about the fucking guy all day? Probably not. And she didn't. And said, oh yeah, he was abusive. He trapped me in this house. And it's like, here's what I gleaned from all the Manson stories. You met a rock star who does a lot of cocaine and he's very eccentric. You fucked him despite that. Then he had a lot of kinky sex with you, made you feel a little weird the way kinky sex makes people feel. Then you came back. Then you stayed with him for months, if not years, after that fact, saying, oh my God, I feel trapped. What I feel trapped means is, this isn't as cool as it was before. I thought this was cool when we started doing this. I'm hooking up with Marilyn Manson. You know, I'm in a fucking, he put a saddle on my back and he's smacking me with a riding crop and all this other fucking bullshit. Well, turns out it wasn't that cool. Turns out that Manson didn't make him feel great about the whole thing. And they left it on bad terms, which makes women think about all this shit and go, was I fucking used? Was I abused? Because at first it was cool when he was being awesome, and then the more we did coke and stayed up for 3 days at a time, and he was drinking blood out of a fucking boot or whatever the fuck he does. All those things, suddenly girls think about that years later and go, oh, that was fucked up because I fucking hate that guy now and I let him do crazy fucking shit to me. Marilyn Manson's a big baby. You could possibly be right, my friend, but he may not be a fucking rapist, and I don't think he is. I don't think he's an abuser. And as I said, all these girls, the common thread is they all seem to want to stick with him forever. They didn't run screaming from his house after the first so-called abuse. They didn't go, I gotta get the fuck out of here, which is, I don't know, if I went to some spot with some girl who's trying to put cigarettes out on my knee or do something crazy like that, I'd be the fuck out of Dodge. I wouldn't be sticking around to find out what she's going to do next. But these girls stayed and they're like, he had black curtains in his house so he couldn't see the sunlight. I'm like, what kind of fucking curtains did you think Marilyn Manson had? You see, you could make anything sound shitty if you just say it with a shitty tone. You could make literally every sex act you've ever had. I'll give you an example. You know, I was with a girl, and hold on, before I give you the example, the kind of girls who go after rock stars, how do I say, kind of look for trouble. Got to agree with you there, man. 100%. Well, I'm going to give you an example of making anything sound shitty. I was going out with a girl, and I told her I wanted to take her to a Mexican restaurant. She told me she doesn't eat Mexican. So now I have to go wherever the fuck she wants. So I take her to a Chinese restaurant. So we eat that. But I didn't really like it, and I wasn't having a good time. And then we went home, and, you know, she took her shoes off in my house right away. And then just like sat down on my couch. Then we started having sex, and this girl pulls my hair. What? Where did she come off doing that? And I was like, whoa, like, I don't even know you that much. So then, you know, yada, yada, yada. We're dating for about 6 months. She's making me go to her mother's house every weekend. And I don't want, it's my only days off. Hey, don't I sound like an asshole right now? This is what happened with Manson's girlfriends. They're now sitting there talking about all the little kinky stuff that they do. And I mean, shit. There's girls who would say things about me, like Paul Bazile pulled out a lit candle and poured the wax over my fucking back. Paul Bazile put his thumb up my fucking ass. There's people out there who could say that about me. And if you say it with like, yeah, we had fun, he did all this crazy shit, then it's fine. But if they just say it with a shitty tone, suddenly, oh, is he an abuser? Is he an asshole? So it all basically depends on if they have a good time. And I think where Manson went wrong with Dita Von Teese, Evan Rachel Wood, and the chick who played Roz on Game of Thrones, if I had to take a fucking guess, where I think Manson went wrong on all this is because he's so rich, because he gets his way so much, and because to him, you know, people are always around him loving him and they're disposable, he could just go, get the fuck out of here. He didn't leave them having a good time. That by the end of the relationship, he was just sort of like, fuck you, get the fuck out of here. And it made them feel cheap and it made them feel bad about themselves. But once again, if Rose McGowan, the queen of Me Too, everybody did something horrible to her. And by the way, we'll have a Rose McGowan live stream one day where we'll get into her entire crazy past she never disavowed, including the Children of God cult that she grew up in and her parents fucking raised her in, which is basically a communist religious sex cult that Rose McGowan, I sort of think, okay, this is what fucked her brain up. like she's a victim of all this shit. So now to her, it's like under every rock is some rapist and some abuser. I'm not even denying most of her stories. I'm sure some guy said, hey, I'm going to show you my dick and give you a fucking part. And she probably had to fucking go through a lot, just like most women. The problem is these women go through it and do it and get whatever they want out of it. And then 20 years later, they go, I got a story for you. Harvey Weinstein made me suck his dick. And it's just like, uh-huh. And you sucked his dick. You could have said no, but bitch, turn around. That's your mansion. Now you have a Porsche. Can't feel bad for you. Sorry. It's hard for me to feel bad unless they're forcing you to do something. If you could just walk away and go, I don't give a fuck about you, and fucking, I'm not doing that. Like, I'll find some other way. You could always do that. But here's the thing with the Evan Rachel Wood stuff, and now all the people who are dogpiling on Manson, leaving out 90% of the story and go, he's a sex trafficking pedophile. And I'm like, no one even said that about him. Evan Rachel Wood said he spoke to me a couple times when I was underage, and then when I was of age, we started dating and he spoke to me more and it got more adult. But sex trafficking pedophile, it's everybody's way of telling you what a good person they are, to shit on whoever people are dogpiling on. Hey, I heard a story about Marilyn Manson. Never met the guy, but I heard some stories that his angry, bitter ex-girlfriends fucking may have said. And that means that I know everything I need to know about this fucking guy now. Are you fucking stupid? You think girls don't make fucking shit up? You think when girls tell stories, they don't leave out giant chunks of the fucking story? Are you out of your fucking mind? Really? I saw a fucking Instagram story today from one of my liberal friends that I follow. 27-year-old, beautiful, hippy-dippy white girl. Posted something along the lines, just text, like orange background, white text. It said something along the lines of like, just so everyone knows, Asians are people too, and they are mothers and fathers and deserve to be respected. Okay. What? Like, what are you trying to say? What inspires someone to write that? What are you trying to get across? Like, did anyone who read that, did she go, my followers probably don't even know that Asians are people, so I better fucking let them know. That is the craziest fucking shit I ever heard in my life. Yet, yes, this human being exists out there who was sitting around today scratching her asshole going, what do my followers need to know? That's it. Asians are people. They probably don't know that. There's probably a lot of people out there who just walk by Asians going, Arr! And he's like, does that exist? I've never met that guy. And who are you telling? Are you telling me that? Are you saying by implication that I or the people reading this don't think Asians are people? Thanks for the tip. I guess I'll move forward in life going, I had no idea Asian people were human beings. Yeah, we all know that. Rape is bad and you shouldn't sex traffic children. Gotcha. I won't. Okay. And then they go, and Marilyn Manson is. And I'm like, I don't know about if Marilyn Manson rape is. I think he has some crazy exes. And I wish they would have sorted it out with some evidence rather than just I have a story about a crazy rock star. No, they said so. I believe them. Well, then you're a fucking idiot. Sorry. If you just believe a millionaire stranger and what they said about their shitty relationship with another millionaire stranger, you're out of your fucking mind. And the only thing people are trying to do by maligning this guy who's been in the public eye for 30 years or so now, the only thing they're trying to do with that is they're trying to tell everyone, hey, I'm a good fucking person. I'm great. Don't look at me like that. That's all the way this is going. And keep in mind, everybody has fucking rocks that you could turn over. It's like, come on, girls out there. You don't like getting choked? Really? You don't like getting your hair pulled? You don't like getting fucked in the butt? Really? Yeah, none of you girls out there have ever been pissed on, huh? Not one? Not one? What about pissing on your boyfriend? Any of you girls do that? How about bondage? Anybody ever get spanked? It's funny because I never met a girl who doesn't like getting spanked, but apparently all these girls out there, after they do it consensually, go, I don't feel great about that guy anymore, so therefore that was abuse. Two different issues. And they try and act like, no, there's nothing in my private life. My fucking ass. Every single girl I've ever been with has stuff in her private life that Yeah, we do this, we do the normal stuff, but there might be other stuff that girl's into that they don't want the world to know, that they don't want their moms and dads to know about. They don't want their coworkers to know about. That's all well and good. And like I said, I think Manson's mistake is he's a rich guy. He does whatever the fuck he wants with the people around him. And when he's done with people, he just goes, fuck you, I'm done with you. And he didn't make him feel good about it. And then when he did this with crazy girls, right? Rose McGowan's a crazy chick. I'm sorry. If you're raised in a cult, you're a fucking crazy chick, especially if you never disavowed that cult. Vita Von Teese, kind of fucking crazy. Pretty, gorgeous, crazy. So is Rose McGowan, by the way. Smoke show, crazy. Evan Rachel Wood sounds like a crazy chick. That's his mistake. He fucked with the emotions and the brains of crazy chicks. He did very advanced sexual things with them that after fucking with their heads, they decided, maybe I was abused too if I could get some press out of this. And they went ahead and did that. Thank you so much for listening to my hot take on this. Once again, you don't have to share this. You don't have to like this. We could keep this between you and me.